One solution, your number one solution, if you're forced to give one to fix the defense, is what? Let me just once again reiterate, because this is important from my standpoint. I'm much more into solutions than I am going back and playing the blame game, even though we do it a lot. I think it's hard to come up with a solution when you're not exactly sure what the problem is. I think the problem is multi defensively. What's also ironic about this whole conversation is we couldn't have had this conversation after the Giant game or even the Raider game for that matter. I mean, they the pressure they got on Geno Smith and the disruption up front against the Raiders left nobody thinking that there were any issues defensively. This is the up and down roller coaster nature of this league. But I think what we've seen now against the two better and more capable offensive teams in this league, and they've got several of them coming up, over the next several weeks. I think that, there's an issue here once again. This looks like the problem. Taking, a macro view of this team offensively, look, without Jaden and without Terry, they put up 27 points, without, by the way, getting, super short fields, except in the Sandersville situation. And the kickoff situation, that was a big kickoff return by Luke McCaffrey. It does appear, we might have a different opinion this coming week if they shut down Justin Herbert, if they do to the Chargers what the Giants did to the Chargers. But I think there's a problem. I think we would all admit it. Identifying what the problem is or what the problems are is harder. Again, my information is nobody believes it's just one thing. Nobody believes it's just scheme and play calling. Nobody believes it's just Marshawn Lattimore. Nobody believes it's the safeties exclusively. Kime wrote a good story, and I actually just read it for the first time because somebody just sent it to me during the break yesterday on the defense, and there's some good quotes in here. Dorrance Armstrong, we've got to figure out what we're doing wrong and get it right ASAP. There's definitely a belief out there that there's something going on, and it's an issue. And again, it's not just one thing. John had some really interesting data and information in his story. In each of the next 6 weeks, Washington's opposing quarterback ranks in the top 15 total QBR. 4 of those in the next 6 weeks are top 9 in total QBR. And 5 of them rank in the top 12 for pass plays that gain 15 yards or more. Washington currently ranks last in the league in the number of such plays allowed, pass plays that go for 15 yards or more. There's a lot of discussion from guys like Jeremy Reeves and Will Harris, reiterating some of what Joe Witt talked about last week, which is eye discipline, eye control, communication on the back end. Washington's allowed 20 pass plays of 15 yards or longer, and they allowed 8 on Sunday against Atlanta. This is an issue for sure. The other piece of information, very interesting from John in this story. No team has allowed more pass plays of 15 yards or more while facing motion than Washington with 11, and 6 of those occurred Sunday. Atlanta gained 328 yards Sunday while using motion. That tactic also hurt them in week 2 versus Green Bay, which gained 187 yards when using motion versus Washington, 126 through the air. So in their 2 losses, they've given up 839 yards total, but 515 yards of that 839 in the 2 losses to Green Bay and Atlanta were versus motion. And remember, that's not just passing yards. It's passing and rushing yards. They got something going on back there. One solution, one idea. I think it's really hard to come up with this, and I think I'm asking a question that it's going to be very hard for you guys to answer because we don't have all of the information here. But if you forced me to make one decision, just because I do think he's struggling, whether it's all about him or just partially about him, of the corners, and Sanders still hasn't been great, although I thought he played better on Sunday. I thought he was actually good in the run game when there were a lot of missed tackles. But my one solution, gun to head, forced to make one, I'm going to sit Lattimore for a while, and I'm going to move Sanders still outside and Noah I back inside. What's your one solution? It could be extreme, like we're moving on from Joe Witt Jr. They're not going to do that. Or the lesser of the extreme answers, Dan Quinn takes over play calling. Or it could be personnel related. Or it could just be coach him up better. I will say one thing before I ask Max for his answer, and then we get to the phone lines. I talked about this yesterday because Quinn talked about, the pass rush could have been better on Sunday, and that's true. But I don't think you can, even though the pass rush has been improved, run stopping's been improved, and the pass rush until Sunday had been fairly effective. Again, you have to say, caveat, two opponents were really not good on those days or set up to be good on those days offensively because they were really hurting along the offensive line. And in the Raiders' case, they weren't very good along the offensive line to begin with. And Washington dominated the line of scrimmage against the Giants and against the Raiders. But I think the one problem with saying, well, if we can just be consistent as a pass rush team, that will elevate the back end. That is true, but it's hard to be consistent pass rush-wise when you don't have a special pass rusher. And they don't. The Giants have 3 of them. They've got 4 of them, you could say. They've got Carter, they've got Burns, they've got Thibodeau, and they've got Dexter Lawrence. They have 4 A-level defensive players when it comes to disrupting an offense. Washington really doesn't have one. They've got a couple of good ones. I think Armstrong's playing at a high level this year. I think, Kinlaw's playing at a high level, but they don't have the guy that scares the crap out of the opposing offensive coordinator. They don't have the guy that elevates everything around them. There's so much attention on this player that everybody else gets to eat. And I think if you're relying on the pass rush to mask the back end issues week in and week out, there are going to be some games where they get lit up against good teams, good quarterbacks, because they don't have a guy week in and week out that can demand that team game plan around that player. Max, you have to come up with one idea to fix the defense. What is it?
Listen, man, there's been a lot said these past couple weeks since the start of the season about Marshawn Lattimore. It has not been great, especially in press man and like you said, against motion. One way that I think that we could kind of remove him from running with a guy would be not putting him on the bench, but putting him up top at safety. Like that's usually the dead man walking for.
You want Lattimore making a D'Angelo Hall late season career move to safety?
It could. Listen, I'm throwing out ideas here. It's not, things are not working.
You didn't trade 3 picks for Lattimore to be a safety.
It's true you didn't, but man, you got to make do with what you got at this point because it has not looked good.
Okay,
at any point.
That's a good. By the way, that is one that I bet a lot of people out there listening haven't thought of. We move Lattimore to safety, and we move Sanders still outside with Amos and Noah I inside when we're nickel. Right?
Yeah, and then if we need a more physical presence, we bring Jeremy Reeves down and put him in the box and have Marshawn Lattimore sit over top.
I think Quan Martin's a better box player. Yeah. I think he's more suited to be a closer to the line of scrimmage player. He just doesn't. I like Quan Martin. He doesn't have the range to play free safety. I don't think Reeves does either.
Yeah.
Safety is an issue with the loss of Will Harris.
Big time. He was a big a sticking point, especially through the first couple games that he was playing. He looked pretty good. Like he had some busts against Green Bay, but I mean, God knows the entire secondary did. So losing him is a big blow, and I don't know if you're going to get the same out of Darnell Savage. So Marshawn Lattimore, get back there, man. We'll put you 12 yards off the ball. Hope you don't get beat deep downfield.
All right, let's get to the phone lines. You got to come up with one solution to fix the defense. Kurt in District Heights. What's that one solution?
Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
I'm well, Kurt.
I think you hit on all the points. Really, there's really nothing to add. But the one thing you did mention is the one thing that I have to say. I think, Mikey needs to go to outside, because Mikey on the inside, I think long term he's better on the inside. But there's a learning curve for him at the pro level on the inside. He went through that learning curve last year on the outside. So right now, he's better on the outside and put Noah Iron on the, inside and sit Lattimore. But I just wanted to add, I think the coaching staff, they had some fool's gold there last year because their run defense was so bad. It made their pass defense look good in terms of the numbers. So I think that they went all in to fix the run, assuming that their pass defense was better than what it was. And I think that had a lot to do with what's going on now. Those points you made were great. And I think that's the move right there. But they also need to sit Lattimore and tell Lattimore to just play. If he gets beat by a step, don't hold. Don't be all in nobody's face, woofing and barking. Just play. If you get beat by a step, turn and look for the ball and play. I think that's what Lattimore needs to do, and he needs to sit down on the bench and think about that.
Yeah, keep in mind, and you make a great point. The pass defense numbers, if you're just a box score reader or a stat line reader, you're like, wow, Washington had a pretty highly ranked pass defense. Well, that was because it was so easy to run against them, and they got run on much of the year, and they were nickel too much, and they got run on. But they knew there was an issue because they drafted Trey Amos. They traded for Marshawn Lattimore, at the trade deadline. So they did recognize there's an issue. They liked Will Harris more than they liked Jeremy Chin. They wanted an upgrade there. So it's just that they've lost Will Harris. And let's face it, if you look at this defense, there are a few players that we expected, this year would take a big step forward from a really solid season last year. Sanderstil is one, Luvu is another, and I think a lot of people were expecting Quan Martin, with the way the season ended for him, to take that next step forward. And they haven't gotten, excellent performances from any of those. There's not been an indication that they've taken that next step. I was a big fan of Luvu last year. I think Luvu last year was debatably the second best player on the team. And, if we're going to debate, the where players rank, you have to start at number 2 because Jaden was clear, in a way, the best player on the team last year. I thought you could make the case for Luvu, and I was really excited to see what Luvu was going to develop into. It's only 4 games. But he hasn't been what he was last year.